Hi all, so this is Sean from Time and Talk, and today's video is about the Lip Nautic Ski. I've owned it for a while and I wanted to make kind of a reappraisal of the watch. So you can see it here. It was based on a watch from the 60s that was released, and the 60s version is slightly smaller, 36mm, and it had an electronic movement in it. This one's automatic. It's a Miyota movement, and it's 38mm. Comes in various dial configurations. In the box you get two straps, a leather and a rubber. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was bowled over by the look of the watch, the aesthetic of it, and I thought I would make a review of it to kind of go over it in a bit more detail, and also to think about some of the flaws that I think the watch has. You can see, I mean, this illustrates one of them, the thickness of it. So this watch is over 15mm thick, and just comparing it to the Speedmaster First Amiga in Space, I mean, I guess you can't see the difference that much, but it is a thick watch, so it's something to bear in mind if you do want to buy this watch. The other major flaw for me is the Miyota movement. Hit me in the comments if you know more about this than me, because I do not know. I'm not an expert in movements and things like that. So I've read conflicting things, but some say that Miyotas aren't serviceable and things like that. But this watch is pricey enough, €499, or I think I paid about £399 for it. So you'd expect this watch to be of high quality, and for you to be able to keep it for a long period of time. And with the Miyota movement, it's a very cheap movement, and you would expect better maybe for this price. So if you are thinking about buying this watch, those are the main gripes that I have with it. I guess you could gripe with personally, in terms of dive watches, I prefer an external bezel, as opposed to an internal bezel. The super compressor style, but that's a personal preference, so you can't blame the watch for having something that you chose. But those are the main two gripes. Another thing is, full disclosure, I have tried to sell this watch on a couple of occasions, put it on eBay, and I've got quite a lot of lowball kind of offers for it, but nothing kind of substantial. It makes me think that maybe it's not the most popular watch. It's something that might be a little bit more difficult to flip, so that's something to bear in mind. And I think that's something that's worthy of another video, in terms of the fact that obviously the watch community, people like certain watches, and those watches are really popular, whereas others are less so. I see this as being an interesting watch that's a little bit more obscure, if you like, in quotation marks, and that's something that people don't like as much maybe as some of the other watches. So you've seen some close-up shots of the watch. In terms of the positives of this watch, there is a lot to be positive about. I mean, the movement, I think the movement looks really nice with the see-through case back. The design is really classic, really funky, and if you see these macro shots, you can see that the finishing on this watch is really, really good. I can barely see any imperfections, and I'm getting really close with some of these shots. Another thing that's really interesting about this watch is the fact that it's French. The design, the execution is French. It does not say Swiss made. It says Besançon in France. The writing on the dial is in French, and it's something that, for a time, I think Lip were made in the Far East, and then they brought production back to France, and that's something that the company are clearly very proud of, and they should be, really, because it's something that makes the watch kind of different to a lot of the watches that we might see on the market. In terms of the shots that we can see, I think this really punches above its weight in terms of the finishing of it. You can see the indices, the applied indices are really, really sharp. You can't really see any imperfections on them. And the watch itself is a really, really good looking watch. But as I said, there are two major, for me, flaws that you should be aware of if you ever wanted to buy this watch. Like I said, the first being the thickness of it. So it is a thick watch. At first, when I got the watch, I wasn't too bothered about it, but over time, it's something that I've noticed more and more. And the second is the movement. For me, is too cheap to be in this watch. But overall, I really like this watch, and it is something that I would recommend if you want something a little bit different. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.